What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast that houses a safe and open listening platform for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on the world of WWE, AEW, the NFL, and the wide world of pro wrestling and sports in general. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number 43 of this freezing cold podcast, and we got another cold and tasty episode for you all today. It's kind of like a part 2 of our filthy casual season preview for the National Football League, and we're gonna it's like a finale of sorts. We're gonna close it in a place that we kind of call home in the NFL, obviously with the red and gold, faithful to the Bay, the San Francisco 49ers, and their 2021 NFL season. When we look at this 49ers team, just like a little brief synopsis before we dive deep into this preview. This is a team on paper that looks good. Not great, not really good. I mean, it can be really good, but it looks good on paper. Obviously, some question marks that we're going to get into. But it can all change in a hurry, both for the good and the bad, if they can stay healthy, if they do well, on the good side, but on the bad side, if they don't do that, then just like with years past, especially last season, that can all change in a hurry. So with that being said, this coming season that starts in a few days, this season is kind of like nut-breaking time. It's like, big dick time for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, the GM head coach duo, because they put in all this big money, these big moves during the offseason to get better. At a lot of skill positions, they re-signed all their big guys that were in-house, and they made this big move that we're getting into to make another run at a Super Bowl. So we're going to obviously talk about it in our little season preview of the San Francisco 49ers. But before we do, we got to plug and shill about the social media, like we always like to do here on Very Cold Lasagna. So, as always, make sure to subscribe, turn on the notification bell for the Very Cold Lasagna YouTube channel if you like what you see here, so you'll be notified of each and every VCL episode exclusive video that comes out. And make sure to listen to the podcast on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now Google Podcasts. You can listen to the audio version wherever you go, whether it's on the toilet or in the car. Yeah, you want to do that, huh? And you can follow the show on social media at Very Cold Lasagna on Twitter and Instagram. So let's talk about this upcoming season for the San Francisco 49ers. When you look at last season, they didn't have the greatest of seasons. They really didn't. They were coming off a Super Bowl loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, a pretty heartbreaking one. They were literally just seconds away, and literally a throw that shouldn't have been overthrown away from winning the Super Bowl. Had Jimmy Garoppolo not overthrown Emmanuel Sanders for a wide open touchdown, it would have won the Niners their 6th Super Bowl. But, I mean, that didn't happen. We can't change history. It was what it was. Fast forward to the 2020 49ers season. Yeah, it was pretty shitty. I mean, sure, we went 6-10, but look how that 6-10 season went. We were last in the division, but the biggest thing was a lot of players went down to major injuries and season-ending injuries, especially Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, Jimmy Garoppolo himself, George Kittle, Raheem Mostert. The list goes on and on and on. That was a big hit list of injuries. Think of it like whenever the Giants the San Francisco Giants in the odd years were like down on their luck, and then in the even years they would win the World Series, and during that early portion of the 2010s. Except with the 49ers, that list just kept growing and growing and growing. That injury list kept growing. And by season's end, we were like, who's this? Which this is not the 49ers team that resembled 2019 or 2017, whatnot. it was just not a beautiful season compared to the more successful 2019 season for the 49ers. Sure, there were some positive things. Actually, one, linebacker Fred Warner would have a really great season, play all 16 games. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but he would be named to the All-Pro first team. So that would net him a big extension during the offseason. Well, kind of spoiled it there, but there you go. That would get him a big reward. And despite all the injuries, former defensive coordinator Robert Saleh would still rally his troops to play real, solid and good defense. Really solid and good defense. And that heart and soul would get him a head coaching job to the New York Jets. And I'm kind of excited to see how he does on that team. But obviously, we're now going to focus on 49ers. But that being said, a few positives to take away for the 49ers team. But it was still a pretty muddy 2020 season. So when you look at the offseason this past winter, there are a lot of things that the 49ers had to address. Specifically, what they were going to do with offensive tackle Trent Williams. He was a pending free agent. They traded a 5th round pick to the Washington football team for Trent Williams, and now he had a really good season with the 49ers, and now they had to think about re-signing him. And re-sign him they did. They gave him this big fat contract, 5 years, a big amount of money. I'm not a numbers guy, but still, they gave him a shit ton of money, shit number of years, and they also added more stability to the offensive line by signing a veteran center, Alex Mack, to help stabilize that offensive line, because that offensive line, after a lot of people went down, after a lot of shuffling, it was bad. It was bad in 2020. So, not only that, Alex Mack is familiar with head coach Kyle Shanahan. So, you got some stability on offensive line, and then they also added some defensive line depth with a linebacker by the name of Samson Ebukam, who was previously with the NFC West rival Rams. Then you got defensive tackle Zach Kerr and defensive end Arden Key, who were solid additions as they would prove during the preseason. They would also re-sign in-house players like defensive tackle DJ Jones, safety Marcel Harris, and the other key guy in the secondary, Jason Verrett, the corner. A lot of mainly in-house moves by the 49ers during this offseason, and which was good because you want to keep as many of your own players as possible, while also looking forward towards who you could get in the free agent market. Now, keep in mind, the Niners didn't have that much money to spend in free agency. I think it was like 24 or 30 million to spend, which sure seems like a lot, but keep in mind, we are kind of still in the pandemic, and the salary cap is pretty low. The NFL lost a lot of money because there was no fans in attendance. That means no money coming in for ticket sales. So all bets were off there. So that being said, they signed all their players. Now they look towards the draft. And lo and behold, out of nowhere on a random March Friday, the 49ers made their big move, probably the biggest move, one of the biggest moves during the offseason, was to trade up 9 picks. They were originally slated for pick 12, to go up from pick 12 to 3, trade up with the Miami Dolphins. They traded up that pick and along with 2 other first round picks, so essentially 3, to go up from 12 to 3 in the 2021 NFL draft. And with that pick, they selected the North Dakota State quarterback, Trey Lance. So that was an indicator that, yeah, they got a quarterback. They got a quarterback they wanted. I know some people were getting scared, including myself, that it was going to be Alabama quarterback Mac Jones, because Kyle Shanahan likes those pocket guys like Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, and whatnot. But he ended up going with a quarterback that's better for the long term. Trey Lance, who could move outside the pocket, make improv plays, run when he needs to, make these bullet throws. He's a quarterback that fits more so of the future NFL. And this resulted in a possible indicator, more inevitable indicator that Jimmy G's time in SF could be nearing its end. And that led to a lot of media speculation of, when is Jimmy G going to get released, or when is he going to get traded, or when is Trey Lance going to start? And we'll get to that in a second. So we get to the preseason, and not a lot happens during training camp, with the exception of some key members of the offensive line going down. I think the most notable one was Justin Skoll going down with an Achilles injury, so that was unfortunate. But we get to the preseason, we hear all the stuff about training camp, about Trey Lance, like wowing people. He is just amazing people. He's amazing players, including Jimmy Garoppolo himself. And we get to see Trey Lance for the first time in action against the Chiefs. And for a casual fan like myself, he did pretty decent. He did pretty good. I mean, sure, he made some rookie mistakes. But even though in spite of those mistakes that he made, standing in the pocket too long, I mean, clearly Kyle Shanahan didn't want to explode the playbook right there and there, because then teams would have known what Trey Lance and Shanahan were gonna do there and there. Like if they ever started or played Trey Lance during the regular season, they was like, oh, we know what to do now. So I think I could understand what Shanahan was doing with Trey Lance by limiting what play calls he was able to do. So even then, he still made some rookie mistakes, held on to the ball for too long, didn't know when to improv. Even sure, you could have, he didn't need to or should have, whatever. But despite all those rookie mistakes, he learned how to bounce back from them. There was this interception he threw during the Chargers game, and then he bounced back from them with a pair of touchdown drives and a 2-minute drill. And he eventually settled in. He got comfortable. So that's the thing I like about Trey Lance. He learns from his mistakes. He doesn't repeat them or lose his confidence. That's good. We'll see how it applies in the regular season. You also noticed in the last preseason game against the Raiders, they tried this Drew Brees, Taysom Hill style of play with Jimmy G and Trey Lance. That had huge success, even if it was against the backup players. How that translates in the regular season, we'll see. I just hope that it's very occasionally, because it could end up in a situation like it was in Miami, where Brian Flores was just switching back and forth between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa, and who knows, that might have affected Tua's development during his rookie year. And I don't want that to happen to Trey Lance, all this switching back and forth and messing up the play calling. It could backfire on Shanahan if he does that. So maybe in the style of Drew Brees and Taysom Hill, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So there are also players that I liked during the preseason, like JaMycal Hasty and the rookie running back they drafted, Trey Sermon. He's going to be a key contributor in this new running back committee with him, Raheem Mostert, and Hasty, and the strong safety that they drafted, Talanoa Hufanga. They all had pretty good preseason outings. So they cut their roster to 53 people. Now we look forward to the regular season. Who are they going to face? What do I expect from them? How does their regular season schedule look out? Well, When I look at this regular season for the San Francisco 49ers, it's honestly goes from, it's winnable, and then it goes from really tough, and then it goes to from these games are winnable again. So they start the season on the road, like back in 2019 when they had that slate against Tampa and Cincinnati. Only this time, they're going up against Detroit and Philadelphia on the road. So, again, with the Lions, as I mentioned in the last episode, they have Jared Goff as their quarterback and not Matthew Stafford. The problem with the Lions is Penny Swell is not doing so well right now on the offensive side of the ball, on the offensive line. So that offensive line is questionable. And I don't know who their big name receiver is for the Lions, but all I know is Jared Goff, if he wants to have any success in Detroit in his first year or any type of chance to prove that he can be the guy, the Lions need to give him some help. And it's probably not going to be this year, but they should do it this coming offseason. As for Philadelphia, they have some questions of their own. Jalen Hurts did not play at all, or barely, this past preseason, and I'm kind of worried for his development. Like, how is he going to do? Because he's taking over Carson Wentz, the former number 2 overall pick. He got shipped off to Indianapolis, and this is Jalen Hurts' time to shine. Like, this is Jalen Hurts' time to prove he can take the reins as the QB in Philadelphia. Otherwise, well, Eagles fans and Philadelphia in general are going to let him hear it. And the rookie Devontae Smith, he's still kind of trying to find his bearings in the NFL. And that offensive line is still so-so. But all in all, the 49ers can easily go 2-0 against teams that are mainly in rebuild mode. But they can easily go 1-1 or 0-2 if they don't take care of business. So they have to take care of their business against two teams that are mainly winnable. As for the rest of the slate, there are actually some important ones going from weeks 2 to weeks 2 to 8, I believe. So you got the Packers, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Colts, the Bears, the Cardinals again, and then I think it's the Vikings afterwards. No, the Rams. And then after that, we'll get into that in a bit. But you start your home slate against the Packers and the Seahawks. Very tough games to start your home stretch. And sure, it's the 75th anniversary, but what a way to kick off your 75th anniversary celebration at home against the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers. No, you're not getting Jordan Love. Sorry. You thought you were getting Jordan Love. But Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are buddy-buddy once again, at least for this season. On the bright lights of Sunday night, the Niners are going to get to play them. And Aaron Rodgers is always a tough out. Like, even though the Niners have pretty much whooped their candy asses for the most part for the last 2 years, Aaron Rodgers is always a tough cookie to pressure, defend. It's going to be a tough out for this Niners team. Same thing with the Seahawks. Russell Wilson knows how to escape the pressure, makes these magical throws. You're going to have to contain them real hard. Then you have to go to Arizona, and that could be a real first good test for the 49ers because they added some pieces. The Cardinals added some key pieces. Even though they're technically old, but still. You got defensive end J.J. Watt and A.J. Green on the receiving core now. Now Kyle Murray has a new toy to play with. So it's a big, tall task for this Niners team if they want to go win some of these games. And then when they come back from the bye, you have to face a Colts team that could either be starting Carson Wentz or Jacob Eason. You don't know which quarterback you're going to get by this point. But even then, they still have a strong defensive unit, and it's going to be DeForest Buckner's homecoming. So these first couple of weeks are going to be interesting. So they're gonna have to take care of their business in that first stretch, and then to close out the season, you get the Rams twice, a trip to Jacksonville to take on Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Then you come back home to take on Minnesota. Then you go to take on the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, take on the Houston Texans, Atlanta, Tennessee, and at LA for the finale. So all in all, these games will either be a mix of grit and grind, or trap games, or runaway victories. But again, it's all about the Niners taking care of business and making sure they can get the W by any means possible. Of course, not by dick kicking, but winning these games when it matters most. So I obviously have some questions and concerns for this Niners team. We went over the schedule. We went over what happened during the offseason, but going into this 2021 NFL season, some questions and concerns I have about this Niners team. I'm just a little concerned about their offensive line because while Trent Williams remains one of the best left tackles in the league, and Alex Mack, we have some stability at center, the rest of the offensive line, they're kind of mixed. Either they're mixed or they absolutely suck. We don't know what the guard we drafted from Notre Dame, Aaron Banks, is going to be like yet, because he's barely taken the field. And then we've seen what Tom Compton and Laken Tomlinson are like at the guard and tackle positions. They're not the greatest, but they're also not the worst, but they're not really reliable. And Mike McGlinchey, he can be good at times, but he hasn't had a good season, especially that dreadful 2020 season where he just had to switch back and forth. And I do kind of feel bad for him for that, but he was just not in a good position last season. So hopefully that starting offensive line and the depth will stay healthy and be good enough to protect the quarterback, whether it's Jimmy G or Trey Lance. Speaking of those two, when will the Trey Lance era begin? When will the Trey area takeover go underway? That was literally the big question all offseason in Santa Clara, all over the San Francisco Bay Area, all over Levi's County. And in my honest opinion, I honestly don't know. I don't imagine it happening until, I don't know, maybe midway through the season, like later, like at much later in the season, or maybe in a week 18 finale when, I don't know, the Niners are in a playoff position, or like they're out of contention, or like they have the top seed or something, and then they're just going to rest starters or whatnot. They're in a position to rest starters, or I don't know. Like, is Trey Lance going to be in a spot where he's going to like play, but aside from the fact that Kyle Shanahan's going to use this Drew Brees, Taysom Hill style of play? I don't know. I really don't know. But even then, Trey Lance still has some things to work on. Obviously, the best experience is to get the hands-on experience. But for now, Jimmy Garoppolo is, for as much as I bash him, for much as critical as I am on him, he's fine. He's serviceable for the time being. But for now, he should have the starting gig until like something really bad happens to him, like he gets injured again, or he underperforms severely that Kyle Shanahan has to pull the plug on him. Like there's got to be some desperation for Shanahan to have Trey Lance start, and that remains to be seen. Like, I don't wish that on Jimmy G, but at some point it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. And last but not least, the secondary. How are they going to do? They have a new defensive coordinator. They have some new players and some familiar ones, but they lost two key pieces to that secondary unit. Obviously, Robert Saleh is now the head coach of the New York Jets, and they also lost corner Richard Sherman, who didn't re-sign and still remains a free agent, but still. both of those guys were the heart and soul of that defense for the last 3 years, and both of them pushed the defense to their limit. They pushed them to deliver, especially the secondary. So with both of them gone, I'm really curious how they're gonna produce, and I really hope they produce. Like I would like to see them, get turnovers, get yards for loss and whatnot. I think this group is gonna be like taking a little bit of a step down than previous years. So this group is being led by Jimmy Ward, Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams, Jaquiski Tart, who were solid last year. In years past, I would just like to see them step up and be leaders for this group that was previously led by Richard Sherman. So who's going to be that guy? Can all of them be that guy that be the leader? We'll see. So overall, the 49ers can be a good team in 2021. Granted, they stay healthy. They can make the playoffs if they take care of their business. They're also going to have to beat a lot of the good teams in the NFC and stay competitive in what's probably going to be the most competitive division in the NFL this season in the NFC West. You got an Arizona Cardinals team that has players like Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, JJ Watt, and the Rams upgraded at quarterback with Matthew Stafford, and they have a lot of firepower already that's ready to be unleashed in Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and on the defense, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And of course, the Seahawks, they're always pesky as always with Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. So they got to match up with their NFC West rivals, because if they don't, they can get lost in the shuffle real fast and potentially miss out on their Super Bowl losers curse revenge tour. So this 49ers team again can be a good team that can be in the mix for a playoff push, but they just got to stay healthy and they got to take care of business. And they made all these, if they don't, then these moves that they made during the offseason, it's kind of just going to be all for naught. And we're just going to be looking for answers to questions we're going to have for this, after this season on, you made all these moves. Why didn't it deliver? That's what we're going to be asking. Whether it's media people, regular people like me, we're going to be asking these questions to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch all off season long, or even during the season, if these moves don't pan out. If none of this goodwill pans out. So we will see what happens, but I'm still excited nonetheless. I'm still excited to have 49er football back this coming week, this coming days. We start the season in Detroit against Jared Goff and the Rams, and it's going to be a good time. Man, I'm just glad to finally talk about some Niner football, talk about football again in general. It's been great to finally say F you to wrestling, and I'm just so glad that football is back, baby. It feels good. But anyway, thank you for tuning into this fine episode of Very Cold Lasagna, into this filthy casual preview to the 2021 season of the San Francisco 49ers. What do you guys think will happen to the 49ers this coming season, whether you are a fan of the 49ers or even a rival to the 49ers, a rival fan of the 49ers, or maybe a filthy casual like me of the 49ers. Let me know how you feel, whether it's a comment on YouTube or on the social media post related to this episode, or a DM. Let me know how you feel in the comments or DMs, messages, any way you can to give your opinion, your take on how the 49ers will do this coming season. But that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning in to this fine episode. Make sure to subscribe, turn on the notification bell to the VCL YouTube channel. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor FM, as well as Google Podcasts. We are now on there too. We are not on Spider-Man FM or Spider-Man-ify like I botched it in the NFL preview episode. But anyway, I digress. Also listen to the show wherever you can, and follow the show on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports in general, freezing cold and in the fridge, like a very cold lasagna. Until next time, peace out.